Hello, everybody. We've got our finals matchup in our 2024 community tournament ready for you today, and it is a repeat matchup of former champions here. Which, if you've been watching these regularly, you won't be surprised to see either of these two players, and that is Richard Spence and Rahn McKeown. And these two, extremely strong players. We've seen them before. On Twitch, we broadcasted the matchup between Ron and Lindsay Shin, another frequent finalist in these events. But if you're wondering, gee, I didn't hear about this event, that's for good reason. This was an exclusive event open only to the finalists of our previous community tournaments. And that is why it is a who's who of the strongest competitors that we featured in these events. At some point in the near future, we're going to get back to offering these community tournaments to a more wide group of players. But to get back into it, who better than our previous finalists and champions? And just a quick reminder of what the players are playing for. They're going to get an exclusive tournament champion tile for 2024, in addition to very nice prizes, 3 months of ad-free Scrabble Club, a very nice haul of gems and tickets. So both players have done very well to get to this point. So without further ado, we're going to cut to the game screen where we have both of our players ready. It's Richard's move to start in game one. And Richard, feel free to go ahead and start up this match anytime. So with that, we're going to start Richard's clock here. And we'll be off to the races. Hopefully everybody can see us here on both Facebook and Twitch. If you're out there and you're watching, please let us know if there's any audio issue early on here. We got to get that corrected as fast as possible. And just feel free to say hello if you're out there ready to catch some great Scrabble content with us. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, and hopefully it gets a little bit better with some Scrabble in it as well. So Richard, again, he's going first, but we've got a new feature here, which is to show you both of the players' screens at once here. This is going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a much better idea of who sees what, who sees the different plays on the board, who's experimenting, and you can see that Ron, with all those consonants he has exchanged, and Richard, and hold on a sec. It looks like we have some kind of an issue. Stand by a moment.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We just had a brief little technical issue with the players, which we have, I believe, since resolved. Sorry about that. I know you could probably see me speaking, but not hear me. But now we should have that squared away, and it is back over to Richard. And he had weirdly set up on his rack, which I do think he is very, very likely to play with his E hooking right here. Let me try to do the telestrator for you all here. He can play anything that he wants, hooking BYE, or he can get extra points for it, which he may be about to do by placing his Y right here. So that is going to score a little bit better at a cost of opening up a triple to Ron. So that's a cost benefit. I don't know what you all think out there in the chat. What do you think? Weirdly for 79 or weirdly making buy without opening that triple up? Richard opting for the more aggressive approach here, which it does make sense. You always want to score as many points as you can. Jesse on Facebook says, "Why not place weirdly with the Eon buy?" It's a very reasonable question, but you do get a fair number extra points for doing it. And just keep in mind too that players at this level are so strong. Both of these players very, very, very strong. You're likely to be able to get points in a number of ways, but actually, upon looking at it, it's the same number of points in the spot with the hook of BYE. So that just could have been something where maybe just escaped Richard's notice. Maybe he had a reasoning for it, but either way, Ron responding with aft for 39. Very nice overlapping play that uses up that triple and prevents Richard from using it himself. And back over to Richard, you can see not the best draw. He got that first blank to start the game, which you love to see, but not the best draw to follow up with the two V's and a U. So that's not ideal. He's certainly going to be looking to shed as many of those clunky letters. In the official Scrabble Go community group, hopefully we have some people out there from that group. I did a little poll of what letter do Scrabble players most dislike, which is the most hated Scrabble letter, and the V was a runaway top choice. And it looks like Richard is getting set to play Vive and Buy, which is a pretty solid play. Those V's make it very difficult for Ron to do very much. The V, notably, does not take any two-letter words, so a very nice way to get rid of the V's without opening very much at all back to Ron. So first few moves going very well for Richard, getting a bingo down and then making a nice defensive play. But Ron does have two S's on his rack. In general, that's a big win when you've got those S's. Maybe he'll be able to come up with something that lets him play down from here. Instead, very nice idea. The A hook on buy. That's going to get a bunch of points. The question for him now, do I use the S or keep it? And you can see he's deliberating on that very question. So using it has advantages of you don't keep 4 consonants on your rack, but not using it has the advantage of setting yourself up to use that hook on a subsequent turn. So I think that's going to be a good idea. Hold on. Players are asking me a question here. I'm going to stop the clock and let me ask them what they... All right, continue. All right, there we go. So that was a production error on my part that's now fixed. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. And it looks like Richard is getting set to play Ew under there for a very, very nice score. I'm going to pause Ron's timer for a minute. Yeah, look at this. It looks like Ron has drawn beautifully to that 4 consonant leave with the 2 S's he drew. And let me make sure you guys can see what's happening here. I'll start his clock again. He's drawn AI blank, which is absolutely the perfect perfect draw to those 4 consonants, and he is going to be right back in this game after this very, very nice play of assigns and balms. 87 points for Ron there. That is an excellent play on his part, and the game is back to an even score, 150 to 149. So a pretty good one here to start things off. Oops, hold on. I don't know what I did there. There we go. Okay. So yes. All right. I think everything is going good here. But again, please let me know if there's any issue on the production front. We're still just starting out. It's just game 1. So any snafus we can correct, and it'll look nice for the entire rest of the match there. So, all right. So Richard going next. He's got that H. That certainly stands out to me as the only tile on his rack that scores more than 1 point. So that's certainly going to be the tile that he's looking at immediately. How can I put this H on the board in a spot that's going to get as many points as possible? And we'll find out what that is. But let me see here. Trying to make sure. Yeah, okay. This all looks correct, I think. All right, so there you go. The answer to that question, hotel in that left-hand side of the board. That looks like as good of a play as I could see there. I didn't really see a way for Richard to play down to the open triple through the eye of assigns. That certainly would have stood out as a nice spot. And now Richard with unlined on his rack. I wonder where he'll be able to play that, but that is a valid 7-letter word. So Ron has quite the embarrassment of riches here. He's got the Z, the K, the F, the P. He's thinking about ways that he can score well here, and he opts to play, looks like he opts to play Fizz, which looks like a very reasonable choice on his part. 35 points, gets rid of the Z, doesn't offer anything back to Richard, which is quite nice. And Richard with a 7-letter word on his rack that doesn't seem to play on this board, which is a tough break. Hello to Clara Adam on Twitch. The S is S tier, says EMP. You're absolutely right. So Richard has, it's a tough, these racks, right? Low point tiles. He's got the ED combination for bingos, but the board doesn't really have any good places to play a 7-letter word, so he's going to have to come up with some kind of a backup plan here. It is worth noting that this triple right here is still open, but it's not actually that easy to play down through this I in that spot. He doesn't really have exactly the best letters to do that, whereas Ron can definitely play some stuff in there, such as inked or maybe oinked, or pinked is even a valid word. So if Richard doesn't come up with a play in that spot, I do expect to see Ron play something there as well. And I'll dim Ron's screen to show that it is actually Richard on turn. So question of why not Hayes on the triple? That's a pretty reasonable play as well. Richard goes ahead and plays Hind here. Getting rid of, the nice thing for Richard is that it gets rid of one of his 2 N's, I should say, but he's drawn another U, which is not what he wanted to see. And it looks like Ron is going to go for pankoed. When you put those breadcrumbs on something, can it be pankoed? The answer is no, it's not going to be accepted here, unfortunately. So that's a shame. Oops. Did anything just happen on... Okay, you guys can see Facebook okay, hopefully. I'm trying to pause this because I think it's slowing my computer down, but hopefully you guys can see me okay. Please let me know if there are any issues. A lot of technical stuff behind the scenes that has to happen for these matches to take place. But yeah, so in any case, Richard drawing those 2 U's, definitely not what he's hoping for here. Did we get an F? Okay, hopefully that's over with. If there's any connection issue, hopefully it's fleeting. All right, there we go. Oinked is the play there by Ron. That makes a lot of sense, covering up that triple. Richard, on the other hand, with this really rough set of tiles, he's got the 2 U's, the 2 E's. It's going to be very difficult for him to come up with a play that he likes very much here. And he is considering playing Ungule, but maybe he's going to get around to thinking about Unglue here. That would kind of be interesting. It doesn't really play very productively here. It looks like Ron is seeing Ovipara available, but ZI not a valid word, so that's not going to work out for him. Hello to Bonnie on Facebook. Nice to see you all. And we are just underway in the very, very first game of this match. And I'll go ahead and start Richard's timer again. We had some issue with the timer earlier. So, yeah, this is tough. This is really, it's in Scrabble, you got those good racks that have S, blank, Z, X, the letters we all love, but how you navigate these racks with the ugly letters, U, U, G, E, E, is definitely a big determinant of what makes these players so strong. Looks like Richard is getting ready to play Glued for just 9 points. He may consider, again, this is not a turn where he's going to score a lot of points, so Unglue through this N might be nice to get rid of both U's. Of course, anybody that's played Scrabble long enough knows that when you use both of your U's, the Q might come to taunt you afterwards, but I do think that that's a reasonable option if Richard wants to go that route, and instead he's going to play Undo to get rid of the 2 U's in a bit of a different spot. That does create a nice spot for Ron. Immediately he puts his P here to see if he can do something with a play that goes across, but very quickly Ron plays Ava underneath the V there. That's a really interesting choice by him. He quickly ascertained correctly, I believe, that he didn't have a 5-letter word with a P that was going to play right through there. Instead, he plays a nice overlapping play and sends things back to Richard, and Richard is going to cover up that spot on his own as well. Looks like Orgic is going to be the play for him here, sending things back over to Ron. And yeah, I think that makes sense. And oh man, this is crazy. The C out in space, it's letting Ron try atrophic, which is this word going to be valid? Yes, it is. Wow, what a play by Ron here. That is a fantastic bingo on his part, and he spotted it instantly here. Very, very, very impressive to see that word and play it immediately upon seeing the C. So that's going to give Ron a very nice sized lead here. It does offer some counterplay back to Richard as well. If Richard, for example, had a 7-letter word on his rack, he might have been able to play it right here, but I don't think he has one. He's going to have to make a shorter play, probably that covers up this triple. I don't think he can afford to allow Ron to have that, access to that spot, and all the better because Ron has out eats on his rack ready to go down in this spot if Richard were to leave it open. So game 1 is definitely looking very solid here for Ron McKeown. And yeah, what can Richard even do? Something like Puli in this spot, Puli. That seems it doesn't make me happy, but it might be pretty much the only way to cover up this triple and use up one of your L's. Looks like that may be the direction that he's going here. And yeah, that's the play. I don't really see anything much better than that. Richard hammers it down, but that does, although it does block the triple off to Ron, the Sal hook is still available, and out eats is still going to go down for him here. And unless The only saving grace for Richard is that it does expose this open lane all the way at the top of the board. If Richard could somehow draw an 8-letter word through this O, he might be able to reverse course in this game. But it doesn't look. It looks like he's going to have some good plays here. Maybe he'd be able to hit the X in that spot, but it's not going to be that double triple letter word. We call that a triple triple. Some of us call that a 9 timer because you're multiplying the value of your word by 9. With that X on his rack, it's going to be tough for Richard here, and in fact I don't believe he has a play like that. So very, very impressive performance here by Ron in game 1. But again, Richard, I think, is a 3-time champion of these community tournaments. Both of these two players have won their division at the National Scrabble Championship before. They were just sharing with me pre-game. Now, they didn't win the highest level division, but winning any division is extremely difficult. So we've got two very strong players, definitely two players that you can learn from out there. If you're watching and saying, wow, these guys are good, they really are good. It's not just because they know so many words. They have a really great grasp of strategy as well. Richard is going to go ahead and play cold, covering up that top O, saving the X, which still plays at the bottom of the board here. With XU, and it looks like Ron is going to go ahead and block that. Very clever on his part to block off that spot, probably realizing that the X is still lurking. So he played it even before I could undim his screen there. So nicely played there for sure. But yeah, just plopping that Q down is Richard. That makes a lot of sense. The Q, we know it has that 10-point value. We love the 10 points of the Q, but it's very difficult to use because it is so reliant on the U to surround it. So Qi, Q-I. Hopefully you all out there, let me know if you're watching on Facebook. How often do you find yourself playing Qi in your Scrabble games? I'm betting it's quite a lot. Very useful word. So it's Ron's turn. Richard seeing exterior on his rack. Unfortunately, no R. This R right here is tantalizing for him. Exterior going down into that R, but aft cuts it off right there. It's not going to be able to play. Ron does have an R. If he is unwise enough to put an R out in space, he could get hit with that very big bingo here, but I highly, highly doubt that Ron is going to take any chance here. And in fact, he spots a really nice little place to play his A in Taj there. Nice way to score a bunch of points on the interior of the board. No pun intended. Not the exterior of the board, the interior. I'll be here all day. And that's a really nice idea. 33 points for him, opening nothing. That's not going to give Richard any hope with that rack. So, yes. Maggie says, first time watching from UK. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy this great matchup. This is being played, I should add, in the English US dictionary. So if you are a player from the UK that is used to the Collins dictionary, sometimes you might say, well, geez, why are they not playing ZO? Why are they not playing JA, yeah. Well, some of those words are not valid in the North American dictionary, and that is where these two players hail from. So just a little note if you're curious. But yeah, Ron is trying. Ron was taking a look to see if you could put an S onto atrophic, but it's just an adjective, so no such luck for him here. It should be noted that the margin of victory in this game, of course, it is a match. It's a best of 5 match. We're going to see these players play until one of the two of them has won 3 games. Best of 5. But the player who wins their games by more points in the need for a decisive game five will have the first move in that game. So the players are still trying to win the games that they win by as large a margin as they can, or to minimize their losing margin by as much as they can. And that is what Richard is trying to do here. He's trying to figure out, is there any way that maybe I can't win this game, but could I cut the margin of defeat by enough? And I've seen a lot of discussions about this in our community group and elsewhere, of the etiquette involved in when you know you're going to lose a game. Should you resign that game, or should you continue to play it out? And I do think that for most of us, we would prefer to see our opponents play out the game no matter what. I feel like that's a common opinion. But are there any of us out there that would want to see resignations become more common in Scrabble? Let me know in the Twitch or the Facebook chat if that's something that you feel strongly about. Really, you see it in chess a lot, but really never in Scrabble. So, all right, back over to Ron. He's got, there's 2 tiles left in the tile bag. He just took a peek at what they are, and he's probably feeling like his odds of drawing a bingo are quite good. And he's going to go ahead and just play Ort. This is an interesting play because it sets up his S right here in an annoying way. And in fact, he has reneges on his rack now, which is something that Richard's going to have to figure out a way to block. I think he can do it. I think that it is possible for Richard to block reneges, and he's looking and he sees it. He just looked at his tracking. So he's going to know if he were to see that spot, that he has to, and you can see Ron has spotted it here. So if Richard doesn't see it, Ron's going to end this game with a bang, with a nice big play. But I think Richard is very likely looking at this spot, realizing it's the only place where reneges can fit on the board, and I think he's going to figure out a way to obstruct it somehow. That's my guess, but we're going to see how this plays out. Clara says, never resign, let the opponent shine. I tend to agree with that. I also feel like Scrabble at its core is about making cool words and fun plays, and the score of the game doesn't have actually that much bearing on that. But hey, if you disagree, then it's a valid point of view, I guess. But I'm not one to resign too often. So this is a great idea. Richard placing OR in this spot. SOR is not valid, so that is a very successful way. And you can see Ron putting it onto the board and realizing something that he surely already knew, which is that reneges was blocked. But nevertheless, he is comfortably winning in game 1. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm just going to go ahead and update, even though this game is still underway, just because I'm thinking of it right now. I'm going to update the match score so you all can see it. Hopefully, yep, there we go. So this, barring something completely insane, Ron is about to win this first game. And it was Richard's move to start, so it's actually going to be Ron to open the second game, which we'll let them know once this game wraps up, which is very close to happening. Wow, Facebook, Israel, Dawn, and Bonnie are all very strongly in favor of playing out the game to its conclusion, and I have to say I agree with all 3 of you. So it goes, but I know that there are some resign proponents out there, but I'm agreeing with all of you. So all that's left for Ron is to finish this out, figure out a way to score well with that S. It looks like he's considering just plopping it down right there for 20-odd points, and it is going to go back to Richard with just a bunch of low-scoring letters on his rack to deal with. He looks like he's getting ready to play Keto through that K. Seems about as good as anything I see. Zando on Twitch says, you can't win every game of Scrabble. You can always look for your best move in any situation. Absolutely true. Nice to see you, by the way, Zando, as always. And Yeah, I think keto is coming here. Um, we don't need to pay too much attention to the clock. It looks like Richard is considering between Kita and Keto, which of those is going to give him a better follow-up play with his final two vowels. And I think he's gone ahead and played Kita. Either way, purely academic. Ron gets to, he's looking at those letters. He's going to think, where can he play OE? Is there any way that I can stop him from playing OE? Looks like there are a couple spots. You could play Do up here for a good score, or you could just play OE right here for a good score. OE, a word that we love as Scrabble players, but if you're not a seasoned Scrabble player, that's one of those two-letter words that players who aren't as experienced in Scrabble look at that and they say, what the heck is OE? I believe it's defined in our dictionary as a wind off of the coast of the Faroe Islands. And thank goodness that somebody has used that word at some point in human history. And there we go. So that's going to do it for game one. And let me just make sure that I'm going to unmute the mic real quick and just let the players know as a reminder that it is Ron's move to go first in game two. So Ron, you should feel free to hit that rematch at any time. And Richard, you can go to the home screen and wait for that match to come through. So all right, muting again. So there we go. I think the players
that was two very lucky draws in a row.
Yeah.
When you watch it back, you're like, how did that happen?
Yeah, after that, it was like, it's over pretty much.
It's a tough board.
Yeah, and then you blocked the X spot.
Yeah. I figured that was what was, if you drop the X and the Q in succession, all of a sudden it's the games. I figured cut one of them at least.
Yeah.
All right, so players exchanging a little bit of post game there, and it looks like Ron again with some nice tiles, and it looks like Matzo is a very strong opener for him here, and he hammers it down without much thought. I'll pause it for Richard until he gets that game request in. But a nice start for Ron. It does keep the J, which the J is a very strong scoring tile, but players at this level are so good at finding those 7 and 8 letter words on their racks. The J is not the best tile for that purpose. And you can see Ron's tiles have gone south in a hurry here. He had JU on his rack and he drew 5 vowels. So seeing him navigate this tricky vowel overload is going to be very interesting. But Richard has a bit of a tough set of letters of his own. Oddly, we just saw him play Pewley last game. Maybe he's going to be inclined to try that play again underneath Matzo. I believe that's a dog. Oh, look at this for Ron, though. This is crazy. So Ron just put on the board EAU. And look at how beautiful of a play that is, folks. Because EAU off of his rack, but the J would potentially be in position. Any J play, he could play Joe on top of that afterwards. Any play like that would be incredibly damaging. But instead, Richard is going to go ahead and play Pewley on the top side of Matzo, and that's going to take that idea away from Ron, if that is what he goes with. The nice thing about Pewley on the top is that you normally might balk at playing it up there, but there we go. But because Ron's first move was Matzo, Richard no longer has to worry about that Z coming down. So literally the worst case scenario of what could happen to you if you play Pewley on top, that's no longer possible, making it a little bit safer. If you were to play Pewley down low underneath, forget about this here, the X would then be in play. And of course, that tile is still unseen to Richard. So these tiny little nuances here are really key. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the choice there. It does actually matter. It looks like it doesn't. Pewley scoring the same number of points on the top or the bottom, but I really like Richard's choice there for sure. So Pewley up top, and Ron is considering playing Joe, leaving all those vowels. It does score a relatively nice number of points, I must say, but leaving 5 vowels can often go so wrong. He has drawn 2 consonants, but it's the V and the W, so that's actually still, even though those 2 consonants aren't necessarily the best that you would want. There's still 2 consonants, which saves him quite a bit. And quite a nice play here for Richard of Fjord. This scores quite well. We'll put it back over to Ron here. And very, very quickly, Ron is getting set to use both that V and the W for 32 points. Makes a lot of sense here. Right back to Richard. I didn't even get to run his clock there, but that's a tremendous way of using a lot of his clunkier tiles. I think that was by far the best play that Ron could have made in that spot. It's back over to Richard now. The thing about Weave, though, it is without question the best play that Ron could have made. However, it does take lots of hooks, so we should not be surprised eventually to see something with Weaver playing down. That seems like it's very plausible. I might add that it sounds kind of weird, but weaved is also valid. So a D would also make a nice hook for the players here. So we'll see. It is Richard's turn, and he is trailing to start this game, and he's trailing in the series as well, with Ron taking game 1, and Richard's going to opt to exchange tiles, and he's drawn very nicely as a result. His tiles greatly improved after the exchange. Makes a lot of sense here, but Ron is going to have an opportunity to widen his lead even further. And the key here, you can see Richard has set up Sinecure, which would play through this E, also Insecure playing in that spot. So this E is a critical spot. If Ron is able to obstruct it in some way, he's going to take a bingo away from Richard, but it looks like he is going to go ahead and play Hub. I actually didn't run Ron's clock there, so I'm just going to pause on Richard for a second. But that's going to allow Richard to bingo in response here. I'm not 100% sure what Ron should have done with his tiles that would have blocked this E. Maybe something like, I don't know if it gives a bingo back, but something like Habu here instead of Hub. The nice H hook of Matzo, by the way, very impressive. But Insecure is about to come down for Richard, and that's a huge, huge swing. That open E. The E is such a nice letter to play bingos here, and you're going to see it in just a minute when Richard commits this play, as he does right there. So the game proceeds, but a much needed bingo for Richard equalizes the game, and Ron has decent bingo tiles, but I think that VOG combination kind of slows him up here. So yeah, we'll see what he can do with this. I'm not sure he's going to do anything wonderful with it, but look at Richard's draw. He does have that Y to help him a little bit, but way too many consonants for him. So it's going to be a struggle here for both players, but it does feel like Ron is a little bit closer to striking again with another bingo. If he can get that V and G off the rack, maybe he could find a way to use the V and O and keep that NG combination, this nice I right here. You could easily draw something ending in ING if you wanted to keep those letters. I'm not really sure if there is a play that uses just the V and O. That looks very good to me. I would consider playing something like Grove here through this R, leaving ANT. That's a pretty good leave. Keep in mind, too, this T hook of woe on the board. The T is a little bit better than usual because any word that you get that ends in T is going to play very nicely right there. In fact, I'm now realizing maybe he could play something like Gavat in this spot right here. That seems like a pretty good play as well, leaving just EN. That seems like a reasonable choice. So he's thinking about it. We'll see what he comes up with. Most of the choices I just listed there feel pretty similar to me. I don't think any of those is like a massive improvement over the other. But he's thinking about this one. And looking at Richard's tiles, I really don't know what he's going to do if this I gets blocked. If it doesn't get blocked, Briny or something like that is going to be perfect for him here. So Briny in this spot looks great. Looks like Ron is considering playing Grave. Maybe he's going to see that he can play his O instead. I'm not sure if he has a reason to prioritize playing the A over the O. Maybe he does. I don't see it just yet. So that looks like in general, I would rather have an A than an O. And let's see if that comes back to affect him in any way. So, yes, Florora, the lexicon here, NWL. So anyway, back over to Richard. I do expect him to play Briny relatively quickly here look, with all those consonants that he has, look at them all. You're looking for a vowel, and this is definitely the vowel of choice right now. You can put consonants on either side of it, put a high scoring consonant on either side. I definitely expect him to make a play through there. You can see he has the necessary tiles lined up, and there it comes. Keep in mind that Bleeny, I think, could play as well. You could change this R out for an L, but Richard has two R's, which makes playing one of the two even more important. So we definitely approve of that play for Richard. And look at that score line, 156 to 155. Couldn't ask for a closer game too so far. So yeah, back over to Ron. He's got decent letters. That F is going to be tough to use that productively here. It looks like Notum making the jot hook. That looks like a pretty nice option for him, and that is what he's going to go with here. Notum for 24. There actually isn't that much more he can do here. He would have liked to try and play something on top of Briny somewhere. That option doesn't really exist for him. So Notum is his play, and Richard, you can see he has lined up on his rack INHOLDR. He has just blocked himself from playing inholder through this E. That is a valid word, but thanks to Briny, it doesn't fit on the board. That's just unfortunate. I think Briny was for sure a great play by Richard. It just happened that he drew a bingo that doesn't still fit through this E. There are plenty of bingos that he could have drawn that would play through this E. So he's going to have to improvise and stop thinking about that play of inholder that he would love to play right now, and try to come up with something else. There are some very nice places. Again, we saw it in the first game. Richard had a very similar rack, low point tiles, and the H. The H is really a letter that we like a lot. It's easy to use in two-letter words. It looks like he should have a couple good places to play it. One is right here where he's getting set to play it. Another one is right here where maybe you can play something going down. You have to be careful what you play. Do is the play for Richard. I like this idea for him. Leaves him pretty good letters. And very quickly back over to Ron. It looks like he's getting set to play Oaf in that upper corner. Seemed like he was at least considering playing something through the V on his previous turn as well. But instead, he's going to go for covering up one of those top triples. That makes a lot of sense. Just for the record, he was considering, this is a very useful word for you out there. If you don't know this one, fovea. I think this has to do with plant leaves. Really nice way to shed a bunch of vowels along with the V and F. This is a helpful word to learn, but keep in mind it takes a lot of hooks. You can put an E at the end of it. You can put an L and an S. So you can often play it for good scores, but it's a little dangerous because you give back those hooks to your opponent. So yeah, again, over to Richard. Weenier on the rack here for Ron. I don't think that's going to fit anywhere. The only saving grace is it possible maybe that, oh, look at this. This is a fantastic play. I was going to say, could Richard open the board? But I didn't even see how nice of a play this is. Martini for 36. Just look at that. That's really nice. That's an elegant play. By far the best play on offer for Richard here. And I don't actually think it gives Ron anything back. With that 7-letter bingo. As you can see, Richard leveling up here. Congrats to Richard on level 260. What are you guys' levels in the chat? Any really high levels from you Scrabble Go junkies out there? I think I'm level 400 something, so that says a lot about what I like to do in my spare time. But I'm sure that some of you out there have me beat badly with how much you all love to play Scrabble. So all right, it is Ron's turn. Nice play by Richard. That's really, really nice. And nowhere to play Weenier, so he's going to have to come up with something else. And in fact, he's considering just playing Nui right there. 18 points. Balances the rack relatively nicely with that ER combination. Yeah, I think seems as good as anything. It does give back nice parallel plays right here. Placing the W next to the double word score is going to make it relatively easy to score well. But we're going to have to see what... Oh, actually, Nui is going to have a huge effect because Richard will be able to play portaled through that E I'm seeing now. And Ron is thinking better of it. He's going to consider maybe doing something else here. You saw it earlier in this game, this E, right? Excuse me, the E on the board is just so... It's so nice. It's so dangerous when you put an E in a good spot, especially when you can end a word. So Nui here would place an E right here. That allows you to end words in ER. Allows you to end words in ED, ES. So many words like that. So Ron is thinking better of it. He's considering just playing U up here. Considerably safer on his part to play up there. But, oh man, it looks like he's going back. Looks like he's going back to play Nui here. And I think that is likely to result in a bingo for Richard in short order. If he's already thinking of how his letters combine with an E, I do expect him. It looks like, yeah, look, you can see the letters assembling. He is about to play portaled here. It's going to come down quick. But Ron has drawn a blank, and he is going to respond immediately. So this game is still very, very likely to be all knotted up. And a lot is going to depend on the next draw by both players. Portaled, a very nice bingo, 63 points. But it could have been worse, right? Some bingos are worth 80 points, 90 points. 63, that's an amount that Ron can withstand here if he comes up with a decent play through this E. But now he actually has a very tricky situation, which is he could play stuff through this E, like reelings or clergies or something like that. But even that wouldn't score very well, and it does nothing to address this gigantic spot that just opened up. So I'm very curious to see, would Ron consider not bingoing here and playing something down exactly like he may be about to do? Gale, not a valid word, but maybe he's considering, maybe he'll play glare or something like that. So sorry, it's Ron's turn here. I'll stop the clock before it goes back to Richard. We had Richard's clock running for a little bit, but this is a really cool play. I like this play, and I can tell you, based on the level of these players, there's no way that Ron didn't see any bingos available there with that blank. that was specifically something that he did in order to cover up that big scoring spot and stay patient so that eventually when he does get a bingo, you can see Richard getting set to play this. Ron is now going to play Recessed or something like that, and it's going to be a much heavier scoring bingo. He goes for it immediately. Look at this. He's going for this, and patience on his part has just paid a huge dividend for him as he's really pumped up the value of his bingo with this play. He's hitting a triple when he wasn't going to be able to do that on the previous turn, and he hasn't really given Richard anything back with this play. So very, very big swing. Very nice strategic instinct there by Ron. But that being said, even how he draws the second blank too. But that being said, Richard is now on turn, and even though he's down by 5, he has really good scoring tiles available here. So he's going to be up when Ron takes his next move. He's still going to be down on the scoreboard. So this is really still anybody's game. Only 7 tiles in the bag too. So the players are going to have to buckle down. We're headed into a very close endgame. And I have to say, it looks like the second blank on Ron's rack, if he can just balance his tiles somehow, maybe that's going to be the difference here. If he can draw a 7-letter word with an A in it, that spot is pretty tough to use. So maybe he'll be able to land the knockout blow up there. But we're just gonna have to see. So in any case, it's Richard's turn now. What is he gonna go for here? He's got that K. Something like a like. That doesn't really sound very normal. This scores pretty well, but I'd be nervous about a play like that because it opens the bottom row of the board quite nicely for Ron in response. So maybe he won't want to do that. Tough to know for sure what Richard should do here. You can see he's looking at the unseen tiles. This is another thing. This is another thing to note is that for more casual players, you might not think about using the tile bag very often, but there's actually a ton of great information that you can glean, and you see Richard continually looking at it. He sees that blank, he sees that X, and that's going to allow him to avoid inadvertently making a big spot for the X. So for example, a play like a like right here does create a huge spot for the X with picks. So anything with an X combination is going to score absolutely hugely in that spot. If you just happen to have something there, if you got X blank, if Ron were to have X blank, he would be able to score like a bingo style points in that spot, 70, 80 points in that spot, depending on the letters involved in the word, probably closer to 60 or 70. But that's something that's going to be on Richard's mind here for sure. Seeing the X lurking, how can I make a good play that scores nicely? He's going to be up by 20 or 30 points after his next move. There's definitely plays that he can play. It looks like look at this. He has Ilka set up on his rack. That would play right here, an obscure word. You could be forgiven for never having heard of that word, but it plays at the top of the board. It doesn't really open anything back to Ron. That seems like a pretty good option for him. It looks like, yeah, he is getting set to play that here. So Ilka, the play, I like this better than some of the other options that I was seeing. Not sure if any of you out there saw something better. Again, an obscure word. You could be forgiven for not having seen that one before, but a useful one to play here for Richard. So back over to Ron. He's got that blank, which he has to be happy. You can see he too is studying. He's studying these tiles. He can see 3 vowels and 7 consonants, and Richard draws that X. That's a big draw for him. So Ron looks like he's maybe considering playing just EAU here. That would empty the bag. There's only 3 tiles in the bag. I guess the nice thing maybe about it is that there's a B here and a B here. So maybe Ron, with this blank, he'll have the ability to make his blank a B and play with Bo on the triple lane. I don't think that doesn't feel like that exciting of a plan here. But actually, it's going to be tough for Ron to make very much space on this board. He does have a possibility here. He's continuing to look at his tiles. If he plays EAU right here and he draws something really flexible, he might be able to have bingos in 2 spots on the board. So if he draws just the right consonants, which it actually looks like Richard has a lot of the good consonants that he would like to draw, but Ron playing in this spot, maybe he's trying to set up a bingo through an E, which will be on 2 separate sides of the board that Richard just cannot block. That could be something he's thinking about here. So yeah, this is a toughie. Not a must-win game, not literally a must-win game for Richard, but with Ron winning game 1, this would be a great one for Richard to squeak out in game 2 to equalize this series, but it's still very much either player's game. I'm trying to think about what other options might Ron have here. It just seems so difficult to open up the board very productively. Like, there's no space for a bingo here or here, anywhere here. The only 2 spaces on the board where a bingo might play is somewhere in here and then this E. So that's all that he really has to work with. I'm going to, if I'm Ron, I'm going to look at plays just like Za here. What happens if I draw different letters? But I think this is too vowel heavy. I don't think he's likely, if you just take one of these A's off the rack and replace it with a consonant, it doesn't feel like there are very many bingos that will fit with just that type of a play. This is tough. It might be that really the best thing he can do is just play EAU here. I guess if we were clever enough, we could figure out, based on Richard's tiles, what's coming for him in the bag. And yeah, he's back to this play. I think the tiles in the bag are NTO, which looks decent. It looks okay. I think he might have some stuff. So NTO, DEA, NTO. Yeah, does he have... Oh man, this is brutal. Okay, so it's back over to Richard. He definitely has bingos here. But the real question is, this is brutal too. There's so much to think about here. So the question is, Ron has bingos through this E. He can play Anecdote and other things like that through this E. Anecdote stands out to me. The actual question, though, is, does he have anything here? And if the answer is no, and I'm not sure that he does, then Richard kind of has to somehow obstruct this area of the board first, but he also can't score very well as he does that. So there is, oh my God, this is a real mind bender here, and we don't give the players that much time to think it over. So Richard is agonizing a little bit here. I just don't even know how to quickly come up with this. You can see his cursor is on that E. I think he knows he needs to block the E. I think if I was Richard, I would try to think to myself, well, if Ron has a bingo through this E, I'm sunk anyway. So I might as well force him to find it by playing as something as good as I possibly can through this E. And I don't really know exactly what that would be. But yeah, this is pretty brutal. Richard still does have a lead, but Ron's tiles are also quite good. So maybe the idea is to try to play something through this E that leaves your X, and that way you can hit the X next turn somewhere and try to squeak ahead in the game, because if you're able to block Ron's bingos, you will get another turn in Richard's shoes here. All he's got to do is figure out a way to block these bingos, and he will get another turn to work with. So this is pretty brutal. He's going to have to come up with something under duress. I think, looking over back at Ron, he's probably strongly considering what bingos, if any, do I have through this E. And I hate to, yeah, Richard. And Richard it looks like he might be getting set to play sexy here. He's going to have to get that down quick. And the idea of this is very clear. He's trying to block that E. He's going to go ahead and submit this. I'm going to make sure that as soon as he does, he gets the extra credit for that clock. And that is going to make Ron's life tougher. However, playing the X, this might allow Ron to potentially block outplays that Richard has with the remaining letters that he has there. So I have no idea. How this is going to play out from here. It feels like that might have been a game-saving play by Richard, but I don't want to say that for sure because there's still too much. But yeah, a sexy move. That was a sexy move, as we say. That could be the difference between winning and losing. So for those of you that are curious, there were a lot of bingos through this E. Anecdote, primary among them. I'm not sure how many other ones actually fit. Endostia doesn't fit. But either way, there are no bingos available for Ron through this E, which is absolutely tantalizing. It feels like there really should be, but there aren't. So he's in trouble, and he's got to come up with something that scores well and puts a little bit of pressure on Richard here. Detonated. Very nice, Adam. Chiming in on Twitch with that cool idea. But yeah, I just think what's available here? I'm trying to think. Where are the outplays? So, oh, there it is. Okay, Richard is seeing that he can play Targe through this R. He can also play Geta up here. So 2 outplays for Richard, and that should be likely enough to come away with this one. Wow. Crazy finish in game 2 here. Right down to the wire, both players. Oh, look at this. This is kind of nice. Ron getting set to play something like a tone, scoring quite well. But yeah, this is definitely going to be, I think, not enough to win. And I actually don't believe, given that Richard has 2 plays with his remaining letters, I just don't think there is anything. So poor Ron. Ron is probably thinking, how do I not have a bingo? Which I'll tell him. I'll put him out of his misery after this game and tell him he actually doesn't have one, which I'm sure he's super curious. Am I missing a winning bingo? The answer is no. He goes ahead. He plays Tondi. It's going to go back over to Richard, and we'll see what Richard can do. Has he spotted the other outplay? The answer is yes, he has. So we'll just start his clock back up. Oh, he had an issue. Oh, he's going to play gate down low. All right, no big deal. He's decided to play gate, and that's going to do it as the clock goes into the red zone there. All right, hold on. Let me just I'll just unmute myself briefly on the Zoom call. And I feel like, Ron, I've been in your shoes before. I just want to let you know, no bingos available on that last turn. You did not miss anything. And Richard, you played extremely beautifully there to block Anecdote over there in the corner.
Yeah,
or one of those plays. So.
I saw Anecdote detonated, but I didn't see anything with the E in the 6th position. That was like, I was thinking, should I play Ya in the bottom right? But then I don't know.
It
I wasn't
looks,
confident enough.
it totally looks like there should be something, but there was not anything there.
Yeah.
So very well played game to you both. Unless you need a break, which I guess you guys said you didn't expect to need. We can go ahead and get started with game 3, and that's going to be Richard going first in that matchup. So go ahead, Richard, and away we go. Wow, crazy. Let me.
And I wish I knew there was nothing there at the start. I would have tried to optimize for points.
Well, there was, so he can't hear me now, but there
It
were no.
was too sexy, I thought for sure. And your play was sexy, of course.
Thanks. Yeah, I just couldn't figure out, like, I thought there was something to the R, and then I was like, and then I tried TARGE because I was like, I thought that was good, but I wasn't 100%. Because I saw Geta, but like in case you blocked that, I needed a second out.
All right, so hold on.
So I'll start the third match.
Okay,
Yep.
there we go. He's going to start. So that was like, hold on. What was that score? 379 to 355. I got to go back and check what the score was in the first game, but it was something like Ron up by 100-ish. So we'll see if it actually ends up mattering. But all right, I'm muted here. Richard's going first. I'll start his clock. And I think we're underway here. So that was crazy. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. I sure did. Really accurate, good play by both players. You could hear Ron was saying that if he had known that there was no bingo, he would have tried to come up with a scoring sequence there. But actually, he didn't even have one of those that would have delivered him the win. Because, again, Richard with 2 places to play his remaining letters. We call that in the tournament Scrabble world going out in 2. If you can go out in 2, that's usually a good idea in the end game, giving you 2 turns to your opponent's 1. It's a great way to zoom out ahead there in the end game, especially when it's a close one. So, all right, Richard going first. He plays aha with all those vowels. Seems reasonable. And Ron with pretty good tiles here. It looks like he has good low point letters that often look like they should be a bingo. And let me undim his rack and start his clock. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, it seems like there should be something here, but there actually isn't. So he's going to have to, and it looks like his eyes widening as if to say, how could I not have anything here? Dad City on Twitch, this is actually a best of 5 match. So a lot of extra Scrabble here for us. Hopefully the match goes the full amount of games because we want to watch these great players compete. Ron playing Tolu, very nice play underneath there, getting rid of that U. And I'm just curious because you could see Richard with that blank on his rack. He should be able to play something here. The only question is, what is he going to end up playing? Oh, he already had Opuntia set up on his rack, but maybe he's going to consider playing Utopian, which actually fits here beautifully with all of these overlaps. Wow, that might be what he's considering. And Ron is trying redilated. Reasonable guess. Might as well try that if you see it. And oh, this is going to be so nice on Richard's part. Utopian with these overlaps of tat, oho, and pal. A fantastic play on his part, but it is just, wow, there's only one letter that this play exposes out in space, and it's the N, and I really think that's going to give Ron, he's very, very likely to see that gives him a bingo of redlined in response. I really think he's likely to see that here, and that's just dumb luck that just the one letter that's out easily in space. Oh, but he's not seeing it yet. So he hasn't gone ahead and played anything, but he's looking at what maybe he could play under here. But I'm so curious if he's going to go back and look at that. And there we go. I think we see it here. Just for the record, I am muted on this Zoom call, and the players can't hear me, can't see each other's screens. They're coming into my command center here. So this is just Ron being Ron here, finding his only playable bingo, 74 points. Missing this would have been a big deal for him, but he does see it, and that's going to help him quite a bit to stay close in this game. And he draws that second, it is the second blank because Richard played the first one. So, wow, crazy to start this one off. And I'm so curious with all these very nice high scoring letters for Richard. What's he going to do? He is trailing by only 2 points right here. So he should be able to come up with something nice. There is a nice spot right here where you could play some good plays going across. Looks like he's considering, nice idea here. He's grinning. You can see he's got a little bit of a grin. Is farmware a word? Can you be a farmer and put your farmware on? And unfortunately, the answer is no, but that's a great creative try on his part. But yeah, he's going to have good scoring plays right through here. Again, making those parallel plays is so critical to boosting your score in Scrabble. Got to remember that you can play across. Forming those 2-letter words, identifying those good scoring spots is so important. So after trying farmware, which makes total sense to me, I really, really like this play of where for Richard. It scored 42 points, which is very good, I would say. I would say for anyone, that's an above average score for sure. But yeah, nice job by him. Justice for farmware, says Adam on Twitch. Yeah, it seems pretty reasonable. Sorry, it's Richard's turn now. Oh no, it was Ron's turn. Sorry, there we go. Now we're all set. So yeah, Ron's got this nice set of tiles here. He's got the blank. I think he's probably going to find a way to bingo at least through this E, but actually there are surprisingly few locations to bingo here. Tat takes that E hook of Tate, but there are no plays. There are no 7-letter words making the blank any letter in the alphabet that fit with Tate here. Excuse me. And not only that, there are no bingos through this R either. This feels like there could easily be something. There actually isn't, and there are no bingos through the D somehow. So literally the only spot that you can play a bingo here is through this E, which coincidentally is the weakest place to play. So if I'm Ron, I'm going to be thinking, okay, can I play down to this triple? All right, can I at least play into this double word score or this double word score? And amazingly, the answer is no. And I feel like in his shoes, I would be thinking to myself, how could there not be anything better than relegate or something like that? But actually, there isn't anything really better than a play like that through this E. Oof, man. So that's going to be interesting to see what does he pick. It looks like is he getting ready to play retangle? So this is a word that feels very reasonable that it could be a word. It's actually been played against me in an over-the-board tournament at one point. Yeah, you can see his facial expression. He's thinking to himself, what? How is that possible? Because there actually is a word in those letters. It doesn't fit on the board, though. Regental, as in pertaining to a regent, like a king. So it doesn't fit. He's going to have to come up with something else. He was hoping retangle would be the play, but the valid anagram of that doesn't actually fit here. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see what he opts to do here. Unlike last game, I don't actually think that there was... last game, Ron passed up a bingo in very, very clever fashion because there was a very good, decent scoring play that kept his blank. In this situation, it's not clear to me that there is a play like that. So I think he's going to want to try to bingo if at all possible. Other options include regulate, relegate, and the slightly more obscure Eggletier in that same spot. So I do expect him to find one of those. Maybe he already has. So I think he's talking to his toddler children there in the background. He's got extra handicap here in the form of little, I think very young, maybe a 3-year-old. Either way, that's what's going on there. So curious to see what he goes with. He's certainly spending a lot of time on this move. And I think that's normal. It is normal because when you have that blank on your rack, you have so many. Oh, there's the other score. That's helpful. 464 to 391. Cool. I'm going to write that down. All right, nice. But when you have that blank on your rack, you do have to consider maybe not each and every letter in the alphabet, but sometimes you do. Sometimes you do have to consider every letter, and that takes time. So when you have a clock like this, that is something you have to budget in. But at least the nice thing for Ron is the first blank is already on the board, so he can use up a little bit extra time and know that the second blank isn't waiting in the bag to find its way onto his rack and sap even more time from his clock. So he can burn a little bit extra here. I do expect him to make a move relatively soon. So anyway, over to Richard. Richard obviously doesn't know that Ron is likely to bingo. Maybe he won't. Maybe he's just not seeing his bingos here. But which bingo Ron picks does matter a lot. If he does end up bingoing, it's going to be into this E. That's going to give back a triple word score. And it looks like Ron is, I feel like from his body language, he's just not seeing anything. I think he really, really wants there to be something to this D, which would be considerably safer and higher scoring than the E, but there just isn't anything, which is insane. All right, he's going to go ahead and he just plays rig, so maybe he wasn't seeing anything. He's unhappy. He's unhappy with that. But actually, that's not the worst bingo to miss. And the reason for that is that by not scoring 60 points here with his bingos, he's very likely to come back with a much higher scoring one. So he's deferred some points, but he should be able to play a bingo off of this R, like recitals at minimum. That's going to, so he's going to slap that down pretty quickly. Recitals coming down for him. Rig, really, obviously you never want to miss a bingo, but it's not that bad in this case to do that. But kudos to Richard for that nice overlap of fame for 38. It's a very, very nice play on his part. And Ron hammers that bingo fast. Notice how quickly he played it. I got to make sure I do his time. Recitals, the only thing better than that would have been reticula. That would have put the C in the double letter score, and it would have scored a few extra points. Not to mention, placing an S right here is definitely much likelier than an A to yield another bingo at some point in the game. So I do feel like reticula, if he had infinite time to do it over again, would be his choice. But he definitely is looking to conserve as much time on the clock as possible after that long think. So we'll see. Chris on Facebook says, always enjoy Will's commentary. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. Just trying to keep on top of the action here. The players playing at a nice brisk pace at times. So yeah, we'll just have to see. Benji on Twitch, nice to see you as well. Thanks for stopping by, Ben. So yes, let me see. I want to change this because it's bothering me that it's not perfectly centered. There we go. Yes, nice. So Yes. Answer to the question on Twitch is that that's a proper noun. Don't want to get too in the weeds on that, but there's only one usage of that that's not a proper noun, and it's considered to be derogatory. Proper nouns are not allowed in Scrabble. So that is the rule. So, all right, Richard had really nice bingo tiles, but no playable bingo here, unfortunately. Oh, and look at this. Art in that upper corner is going to yield a really... That was a good play by Richard, by the way, getting rid of that U and one of his duplicated T's. And that's going to get hit with a very nice overlapping play of Tyro, by far Ron's best play. So yeah, that was a really nicely spotted play. Let me make sure I'm not sapping his clock excessively. And oh, tough draw though. You love to see the Z if you're Ron, but you don't love the 3 N's on the rack, which that is just a tough one. Dawn on Facebook says, I'm going to hear your voice commentating on my next game. Hopefully that's a good thing. I hope I'm not the voice in your head that you can't get out. I think I try to have a positive approach on things, and I hope I'm not coming off as too rough on any of the players here. These players are playing incredibly well, so it's very difficult to even nitpick very much. But thank you for that comment. I appreciate it. So, all right, toughie here for Richard. After that nice scoring play by Ron, he finds himself down. Richard does by not quite a bingo. He's down by 43, so he can still be patient. And he is going to go ahead and play bide here, which I was about to go through a couple of the options available to him. He could play bide, and that is going to be the option that he goes with here. That does sort of obstruct the S, but keep in mind that the R actually still fits right there, as does the T. So if you can figure out a play that ends in RS, which is actually quite common, Ron considering making a play, but instead he's about to exchange. Oh, he throws the Z back as well. Oh, man. So that is a surprising one there. I'm very surprised to see Ron throw the Z back. So he's definitely going all out to try to play a bingo here. But with this nice spot for the Z here, I would almost certainly have kept the Z and probably one of the O's that were on his rack and try to draw something down here. Maybe that's not actually, as I look at it, it's not that easy to fit a play with ZO in this spot. Again, that's not valid in the dictionary they're playing. I guess you could draw EA, and that would be pretty powerful. But maybe it's not as bad. But I know that's going to surprise a lot of you out there who are big fans of the Z, and I am one of them, to see Ron exchange that tile here. But I'm just to emphasize, why would he do that? It's because as good as the Z actually is, it's not that good for playing bingos. So he's definitely trying to, maximize his odds of getting the next bingo down quickly. That's likely what he's thinking here. So, meanwhile, that's a big break for Richard, because now Richard was probably thinking that, oh man, this game, Ron had jumped out to a pretty big lead, and he was probably a little worried that it was going to take a bingo for Richard to get back into this game. But actually, the score after Ron exchanges tiles, he gets 0 points for that turn. So that definitely puts more pathways to equalizing this game back in play for Richard. He can just try to score his way back into this game. And he might be getting ready to play Invoked to this ED on the board, which is, it doesn't score incredibly well, only 16 points by my count, but it gets rid of all the clunkiest junk off of Richard's rack. The V is definitely paramount. We've mentioned it a few times already. That's a really nice idea by Richard if he ends up going with that as his option here. So we'll see. We'll see what he does. I like that choice for him. And I think he's going to consider playing something else. He's trying kited, which is kite, Kyte, is a valid word. You might think that takes a D at the end, but apparently it's just a noun, so that's not available for him. Hopefully he's not considering. Oh, he is considering exchanging. Interesting. I would have expected him to play invoked, but he's going to go ahead and no, he's clearly agonizing over this one. I like invoked. I think it's worth playing for him, but he could just be worried about after playing invoked, it makes these nice places to play 7-letter words, and maybe he's worried about that. All right, he's going to go ahead and exchange instead. So both players exchanging tiles rather than play anything on the board. He exchanges, and Ron is going to go ahead and play Bod here, which is an aggressive option. If he decides, yeah, see, he's now looking and thinking to himself, what are the hooks that can hit me? How many S's? How many E's, right? Bode. It doesn't bode well. So he's thinking, what can I do that prevents that? But this does score 29 points. And incredibly, Richard doesn't have any hooks to bod. So he's going to be in a real bind after that play. And Ron has decided to maybe consider a much more defensive play of Obi here. That is significantly more defensive in the sense that by placing an I in this spot, it's much tougher to reach the triple than it would be otherwise, and that is going to be his play here. The cost, though, is that he kept 4 consonants on his rack. So it doesn't really hurt him as he draws a vowel and the Y. But Richard immediately playing pretty much his only viable play in response of Tahini. And that's by a mile his best play here for sure. In fact, it left him the pretty good IN leave as well, which can often combine with some other good stuff. But yeah, that was very, very fast. Back over to Ron. And this game, again, is pretty well knotted up here. Oh, what happened to the scores? Let me see. I don't know what I did to the scores to knock them slightly off, but I'm going to try to fix that here. What did I do? All right, hold on. Scores. It should be a relatively easy fix. Hopefully. And this one. There we go. I think that should look all right, hopefully. Yeah, okay. Looks good enough. All right, so this game is definitely... they have a lot of game left. There have been some very tricky decisions here in this one. The players are going to have to note that they still have a good chunk of time left, or rather, a good chunk of tiles left. And they've got to play with good pace here. And Ron is going to go ahead and play Dine here for 19. Oh. Okay, he's gone a different direction. Lynx looks like, yes. So this is a pretty nice idea. It doesn't score incredibly well for him here, but it does score 25, and most importantly, it leaves this E, which you can see based on all of these letters that he just drew. The E, keeping the E, was so important for him here. That was really, really big that he was able to come up with a play that achieved that. So, all right, Richard's turn. He's going to go ahead, and both players are in a very similar boat. Not a lot of vowels between them. There are a solid number of vowels still to come in this game. The players just aren't really drawing them. So at some point, these vowels are coming. And the only question is when. So back to Ron. And it looks like he's getting set to play Jets. I don't know anybody out there that is an NFL fan. I am an NFL fan, and I am a fan of the Jets. So very crazy day for us out there in Jet world as we fired our head coach today. Any NFL fans out there who were shocked by that news, as I was? Anyway, let me know if you're on Facebook or Twitch watching along. All right, Ron is now getting set to play Zesty. You don't love getting rid of your S here. 34 points for him. Uses up the S, but it used up 3 consonants and scored pretty well while he's at it. So that was a very good play. And now Ron has drawn another S and a bunch of vowels. So things are getting a little bit closer to balance for Ron. He should be able to use his J somewhere. And Richard is getting set to play Fever very quickly. That looks like a pretty reasonable choice. That is the play that he comes up with, leaving GNS. Is he going to draw vowels? Ooh, he does. He's close. That's a great draw with ING on the rack. Not that ING plays anywhere on this board, but both players are inching closer to playing another bingo, and both players have an S with this nice S hook just sitting there open on the board. So this is coming down to the wire. 15 tiles in the bag for the players here. And it's this, you could easily see whichever player gets the next bingo down, seizing victory in this one. So yeah, we'll see. So what can Ron do here? Both players surely racing to get that S bingo down. I guess something like judo here looks great from that perspective to get the J off, and that may be, in fact, literally before I could finish my statement, he had the J going down in that spot. Ooh. So Ron considering playing Joe up there instead of judo. I think he's evaluating which spot is going to be better to maximize his odds of drawing something. So the U is definitely kind of scary. The Q is still lurking. So you could sometimes draw the Q and be happy that you kept that U. So let's see if he does. He does. Wow. So keeping the U pairing very nicely with that Q draw. That being said, it's going to be tough to use it super productively. The rest of his letters don't combine the best here. So Joe in the upper corner. I think that was a pretty reasonable choice by Ron. I don't know. I'm weighing it between judo and Joe, and those were really, really close. But also Ron is he's inching up on the scoreboard as well. He has managed to outscore Richard in most of the last few turns. So he's up by 55 here. So really, bingoing is not an absolute necessity for Ron. It's starting to become one for Richard. Oh, and Richard's about to play one of these classic, there are many, many words, these alternate spellings of Ganef, which I think means a thief or something. Yeah, who knows? Good point by Ancient Cosmographer on Twitch that maybe the thinking, instead of playing judo down here, is to leave this ED spot open. That makes a lot of sense if you draw a bingo with ED. So, all right, let's see what Richard does. He's going to go ahead and he plays Ganef. 27 more points. Oh, man. Good tiles, but I don't think he's quite there. All right, it's back over to Ron. This is really coming down to the wire here. Oh, boy. And it looks like he might be about to play D Gums for 27, leaving the Q, which is scary, but also note from Richard's POV that he has somewhat of a legendary word in Scrabble circles, a word that was once played by 3-time national Scrabble champion Joe Edley to essentially clinch his 3rd championship. Richard has that available here. I don't want to spoil it for you in the chat that might be looking, but there is a crazy bingo available here potentially, and Ron doesn't look like he's about to block it. So there's going to be a little bit of Scrabble history test, a history test for Richard. Not just a test of Scrabble history, but also a test of anagramming. And I haven't seen it pointed out in any of the chats yet, either on Facebook or on Twitch. But Ron is he's really down and on the clock. So he's going to go ahead and play Meg for a solid score. I like this play for him because it keeps that QU combination where he can really get into some trouble. So it's back over to Richard. And the question here... Oh, yeah. Also, yep, another good point is that the Q is very nice right here if he can draw an I. Actually, there is only one I remaining, it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So only one I, but that's better than none. So, yeah, Chi, after D-Gums, was still in play, but he's going to elect to play Meg instead. So Richard hasn't made the play that I've been talking about, which for those curious is the absolutely insane bingo of Cape Skin into this N. Looks like he's not going to think of it, and he's going to get set to play Ka instead, which again, that's going to work well. This game really is a race to get that 7-letter bingo down with Tats. It's going to be very difficult to block that spot. And Ron very, very quickly playing Qua here to send things back over to Richard. I'm just gonna not even gonna try to mess with the shading situation that I'm doing. So yeah, no Cape Skin, unfortunately, but again, that would have been an extremely difficult play, especially under time pressure. And Ron playing Qua, leaving good bingo tiles, but drawing. Now the vowels are coming out. So this is really tricky for Richard. Let me start his clock again. He definitely, with one tile in the bag, I do feel like his chances of, if he just plays the W, his odds are quite good of drawing something that will make Ron's life very annoying. So just playing the W here, for example, scoring very well, a lot of draws with the remaining tiles on his rack are going to become bingos here. Precise, he can draw. You just looked at the tiles briefly. If he plays the W, he can draw Precise. He can draw Scrapey. He can draw Copiers. And the tile in the bag is an A. So it's going to give him Scrapey that Ron is going to have to deal with. So all of a sudden, this got really, really tight. Back over to Ron. And he's going to just play Donies, which is going to block. Oh, it's an O. Okay, so he has Copiers. So Ron has to think extremely hard. He's surely going to see that he has to block Copiers. But he's going to be worried about, he's struggling to put, all right, he's going to play Doni. Nice. Does this still? No, that does block Copiers. So I don't think it gives Richard back anything else. So it looks like under severe duress, Ron is going to play that. Oh man, had he played, that's incredible. So had he played Donies here, the N out in space would have allowed Richard to play Conspire as an outplay, but by holding it back under severe time pressure, I don't believe that Richard has any playable bingos here. So an unbelievable move under severe duress by Ron to essentially, I think, give him the win in this game. We'll start Richard's clock again. Wow, insane. So just for the record, Ron knew he had to block copiers in this spot. That's what Richard has on his rack right now. Copiers and tats. But the original play that Ron put on the board would have lost to Conspire through that N. So he very, very cleverly shifted his play at the last second to make sure that Richard would not have a game-winning bingo. That is amazing. Amazing. These games have been really top shelf. Hopefully I'm doing them justice, that you guys are all enjoying them as much as I am, which is my goal. So yeah, that was wild. Just for the record, I don't think, given that Ron has the very nice ES on his rack, he's going to be just fine to go out pretty much anywhere on his next turn. Plenty of places I am assuming that he'll be able to do that with. Something like Pails and Ski is going to be just fine. Looks like Richard might be getting set, and I'm not going to... It's already... We'll just chill with the timers here. Don't worry too much. Richard's about to play Copers with 1 second on his clock, and that's going to get him close, but Ron is quickly going to play Pails and finish this one off. We'll start him. And just for fun, I'm going to pause it so they both have 1 second on their clock. That was insane at the very end. I'm going to unmute. Just unmuting for a second on the Zoom call. That was insane. Another crazy last second right down to the wire. Ron.
Anything?
No, absolutely not. Not at the end of that game.
Because I saw Percoids to the D, but
doesn't fit.
Any other eights? Yeah. It's the only thing I saw of the D.
That was crazy. So Ron, did you see what was going to happen had you gone through with your original move?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he bingos to the end to go out.
Conspire. Yeah, so almost put down that play, and then you picked it up and played the winning move. So it's actually been super impressive by you both so far. Yeah, he was
play like Node or something.
He was going to play Donies instead of Doni, but by slotting the N one fewer location to the left, it gives you a bingo lane. So that was insane. But all right, so Ron now at match point. I'm just adjusting my score here so everybody can see that. Oops, I have to change one thing. But other than that, Ron, it is your move to go first in game 4, so feel free to have at it.
You don't want to tell Richard how bad I did on that one rack? You don't want to tell him?
But actually,
like 5 minutes.
I know you
something there.
I know you
played Rig.
I know you agonized over that, but that was actually not the worst time to not play a bingo. It really wasn't that bad. You ended up not bingoing and increasing your eventual score by 20 odd points and not giving a triple back. So it's not the worst time to miss a bingo there, as I said on the broadcast. So
look how kind he is. Isn't that
great? You guys are playing great. So feel free to, I'm going to mute again on the Zoom, and feel free to launch into game 4, Ron, anytime. All right, here we go. Starting up again with game 4. So Ron with a 2-1 lead here in the series. Richard has played amazingly well. I would never count him out. He has won a number of these community tournaments for good reason. And Ron, not with the greatest of draws to start this game. He's going to go ahead and play Unao. That's another very nice word to learn. If you're out there watching these and thinking to yourself, oh my God, these players are insane, it's nice to file away some of the words like that you see played and try to incorporate them into your own game. They're, a lot of words with the 2 U's in particular are super, super useful to learn. So, all right, it's back over to Richard, and it is his turn here, and we're underway officially. So, not a good draw either. So, Ron playing Unao, leaving something like I think he left MEO, and he drew GIIO. So not a very good draw for him at all. It looks like Richard put on the board what looks like about as good of a play as he can of Jurel. Using up that J, getting the double word score, hoping to draw some vowels. He even sets up his F and I guess his M as well to play alongside the E. And no vowels at all. A terrible draw for Richard. But fortunately for him, Ron is also struggling mightily. There's a lot that, a lot of luck, of course, inherent to the game of Scrabble, but a lot of ways that luck can manifest itself, one of which is when you're struggling with terrible tiles, is your opponent also struggling with terrible tiles, and that's definitely what we're seeing here. And Richard is getting set to exchange, which makes a lot of sense for him. He goes down to that RS combination, makes a lot of sense here. RS, very, very powerful combination in Scrabble. So many words ending with that 2-tile combo. Hello to Chrissy on Facebook. Thank you for joining us from the Philippines. Nice to have you aboard. And Ron plays Oot before I can even adjust. Maybe slightly responding to some of the time issues that cropped up in the previous game. And wanting to make sure that he plays with good pace here in this game so it doesn't come down to such a photo finish as it did last time. That's usually the best way to get me to start playing faster, is to have a game happen where I almost lose or essentially lose due to mismanaging my time. Ron tried Generity, which is a very reasonable go here through this N. He's going to consider other possibilities through there. Richard playing High, which makes sense, hooking the H onto Oot to make Hoot. And that's going to allow Ron to try some other stuff through... What is he? Oh, he's going to go for retying with this weird spelling. And he's going to get the bad news that it's not actually valid. He actually, oh my God, he has something insane here, but he's going to have to think of a really outside the box possibility. This would be a tough one for anyone, but he actually has an enormous play through this E of High. I'll leave that to you if you can put it together. What does he have? Not very easy to spot this one. It is a compound word of sorts. I think it's a gemstone, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. Please don't quote me. Oh man, it looks like he might be getting closer to thinking of it. He's got some of the letters in the right order. Oh, he's so close. He's thinking hard. Yes, that's it. Oh, he might be getting close to seeing it. It's been pointed out on Twitch. Oh, he just plays I. Oh no. He saw that he could play I, which he's doing to balance that rack. He does draw into a 7-letter bingo of Turgite, which is going to play right there. In many, many cases, that's not going to get blocked. Oh man, but this is a huge swing too. That Biryani's through this I was just blocked. Oh, look at this now. Ron somehow seeing Tiger Eye on his rack. I wonder if he realizes that he just had that available. So you can see he just put that on the board. I don't think from his body language that he realizes that he could have just played that for an enormous 89 points there. I don't think he's realized it, or maybe he hasn't. He just has an incredible poker face here. Either way, I just want to point out how unbelievably frustrating that must have been for Richard, who had a beautiful bingo of Biryani's through the I of high. That would have played making OS, but I blocked it. And he clearly had that set up on his rack. So tough break for Richard, but it's all going to be okay because after a very nice bingo of Turgite for Ron, Richard is going to follow up here. Let me make sure I'm, oops, nope, sorry, Richard's clock. Actually, I should pause it for a second. But he is going to go ahead and bingo for sure through any of these letters in Turgite, pretty much like the E and T. He's going to be able to play bingos to counter and get back in this game. So again, the situation here, it's a best of 5 match. Ron is up 2-1, needing only one more victory in the match to secure the win. But Richard is still very much in it. He's about to bingo and retake the lead. A lot is going to hinge on his draw here. He's considering Gastrins. Excuse me, I got to start his clock again. He's playing Gastrins, but he could play through this E with some things like Assigner. Reassign, I guess, would be slightly more points, but it would open up this bottom triple very flexibly. Okay, he is going to go ahead and play Assigner, and the reason that I like that better than Gastrins is if you imagine Gastrins through the T, it places the S right here. Think about how good a tile like the H would be going across, scoring on that triple. You don't have to allow that. If you play through the E, it's much more difficult to score well on the triple word score. So I do think I prefer playing through the E. It looks like Richard has thought better of it, and looks like he's about to play Assigner. So he is going to be back in the lead. But Ron has a blank on his rack, and he is looking very, very good to be able to shed that Q somewhere and then bingo on his next turn. That's going to happen a lot for him here. Richard's really thinking this over. It is worth thinking about. There are a bunch of different bingo options here. He's going to go back maybe and play Gastrins. That's going to make Ron's next play really easy. I think there's pretty much an obvious place to just play QIS. We mentioned it earlier, how much we all like cheese in Scrabble, not the food item, but the Q word. So I really, really think Ron is going to dump off his Q in short order, and you can see he already is doing exactly that. This looks exactly like what he should be doing, wasting very, very little time. And he's just quickly looking over the rest of the board to make sure he's not going crazy, missing anything that he likes better. But either way, Gastrins versus Assigner from Richard's POV, these are really, really hair-splitting type plays. It turns out that it's going to give Ron a bunch more points than he would have had normally, and he draws very well. I do expect to see Ron bingo again on his next move here. Very nice letters have found their way here. I wonder if he has anything that goes all the way through this R. I feel like he almost does. All right, Richard quickly plays Pulp. Nice idea. Gets both the P's using the Moyle hook as well. But yeah, I think Ron is poised to get a bingo down and really jump pretty far into the lead, depending on what he's able to play here. So yeah, I guess wagerers might be it as far as easy words to see that lets you hit both of these double word scores right here. That's a word I think he'll see, but again, he's got to spend some time to think hard about each and every letter that blank could be, and that takes some time. Meanwhile, Richard with a brutal draw again. Richard had LAN after Pulp, and he drew VK. He had VK together last game as well, but that's just not the combo that he's looking for here. Should be able to do something with it to score decently next turn. But yeah, Ron is bingoing for sure here. The only question is where. If he misses plays through this R, maybe generals, you could see him potentially play generals through this N. That would be a little bit more than 10 points less if he plays through this N instead of through the R Turgite. So you never know. Every point counts. But he's giving it a good think here. He's probably doing his ABCs in his head. A, B, C, D. Going through every letter and just thinking, what do I have if I make the blank that letter? And I feel kind of silly when I'm doing that, when I'm playing Scrabble and I'm basically singing the alphabet song along with, in my head. I feel a little bit childish, but sometimes you gotta just at least think about each letter. You gotta think about each letter before you cast it aside. Best way to do that is to just quickly say it out loud. All right. You know what? He probably took this long because he's going through the alphabet A, B, C, D, and he finally got to W. And he said, oh, yeah. Oh, wait a second. Nope. Is he gonna? Oh, he's close. There we go. There it is. There's the W that we're looking for. Tagging on that S. 82 points. Send it. Nothing to think about after he sees that. And that's a big swing. Tough one for sure for Richard to see that bingo go down. But still plenty of game left. Richard, a very cool customer. We've seen him come back from difficult situations before, and it looks like he's getting ready to play Knave, which would beautifully get rid of both the N and the K. Very much love to see him do that. This looks like a phenomenal play for him here. 35 points. It really, just look at the score. He's really not that far back on the scoreboard after that play. And he draws the second blank. Amazing. So this is far from over. It looked like Ron might have been on the verge of taking command of this game and running away with not just the game, but finishing off the series. But that second blank finding its way onto Richard's rack is absolutely huge for him here. That is going to be a big, big deal. He is almost certain to bingo somewhere next turn. As Ron getting ready to play Fantod. That's a very nice play to undouble. He's got those pairs of D, D, F, F. He can get rid of both of those, but at a cost of opening this triple. Then again, it already is open with that K. He's going to go ahead and play Daff, which that does use both the Fs and one of the two Ds, so that's good. But I'm sure that there will be some way for Richard. At least he can play Eternal through here. If I'm Richard, though, I'm definitely taking a decent look at that open K, and I'm going to think to myself, man, if I had an 8-letter word just in the right spot through this K, I could win this thing on the spot. I would score hundreds of points, probably getting up towards 200 points for getting that K multiplied by 9 with the rest of your tiles. But nothing like that exists for him. We know that because I'm telling you that, but he can't know that. So he's going to have to at least think a little bit about that here. I'm noticing that it got dark out where I am, so I have to turn the lights on in my office. Hold on, it got dark in here. I got so excited by all the Scrabble action going on. Is that gonna? Yeah, there we go. That's better. After some thought, I do think that Richard will grudgingly play something like Eternal right here. But a word that I miss a lot in Scrabble is the word vodka. And Ron has that through this K right here. So vodka through that K is going to score very well and dump the V, one of the two A's, a perfect play. And I think Richard is, yeah, he's now considering playing Enterol, which I think he's going to play that here to hit the double word score. So now I think a lot hinges on whether Ron can spot vodka, which I think is a more normal word, but I personally struggle with that word a lot. We'll see if he does. If he sees it, it feels like it is definitely the right play here. So back over to Ron. Richard taking back the lead in this game. And there's your answer, folks. Very, very fast. Very nicely spotted by Ron. This feels like a huge difference maker here. That play scores a ton, dumps the weakest letter on the rack in the V and one of his two A's. So just what the doctor ordered for Ron, who takes a narrow lead. But look at this nice mix of draws for Richard here. He draws, you love to see the S, you love to see the Z, and sometimes you even don't mind seeing the W, even though the W is not so great for playing bingos. It's going to pair nicely with that Z here. If he wants to play something like Whiz right here, going across, I made that arrow a little too long, W-I-Z, that scores very, very well. Ron trying to play Manx, as in the cat, which is somehow not valid. I feel like it must be a proper noun, but I don't know. That's one I could have seen be valid. So Ron clinging to a 14-point lead, which Richard is for sure going to take back here with his Z. He's got a couple of really nice options with which to do that. I really think there he goes into the bag and takes a look. And to me, no reason not to play Whiz here. 40 points, leaving the very nice EAST. That combination of letters, the board, not very good for it. But if Ron were to open the board somewhere, very nice set of letters to potentially bingo for Richard, but he draws 3 vowels, which is not what he wants at all. Back over to Ron. So now this is just swinging in the balance. Richard's play of Whiz really helping him out. It looks like Ron considering the nice emote insertion play with emo right here. You could fit a T in there. Oh, instead he's going to go ahead and play Axeman. Really nice play by him, getting the X on the triple letter score and the entire word on pretty much nothing else, but the X scoring 24 points on its own. That is a really nice idea, and now he's back in with a 4-point lead, and Richard overrun by vowels, Ron overrun by consonants. The game hanging in the balance. Richard needs a win to prolong the series and get to a decisive Game 5. I really have no idea who you would consider to be the favorite at this point. I guess it would be Richard, but problem is the board, even though his tiles are quite nice for bingoing, there's only one really hittable spot, and he has to hit something ending in like ES here. That's possible. That's very possible. But it's not a lock. And now he's going to go ahead and play Oi potentially and balance his rack, hope for a better draw. At least one consonant might do the trick for him here. But yeah, this is... If Richard does indeed play Oi for only 12, he's going to have to feel a little bit concerned that if he doesn't draw a bingo, Ron will have an opportunity to outscore him somewhere, which is true, but actually Ron is not well positioned with all those consonants on his rack. So, oh my gosh, no idea what's going to happen here. Richard plays Oi, and what does he draw? 2 more vowels. Oh my gosh, even one consonant would have been huge for him here. Instead, 2 more vowels, and that does give Ron a golden opportunity to get some points, and he's not going to get hit. Yeah, he quickly plays Bod for 24, and Richard again is not going to be able to bingo on this move. But this spot at the base of the board right here is still open for him, and it is actually quite difficult for Rahn to block this spot productively. I'm not sure how he's going to pull it off. It's, maybe now Rahn has the C. So if he's up by enough points after Richard's next play, maybe he'll try putting the C out here with something like Cat. Right? That might be worth doing, but at the same time, it gives back a triple at the base of the board. Sorry, wrong area. It gives back a triple. Sorry, I forgot to start Richard's clock. So nice job by Richard here to actually get 19 points for dumping 2 vowels. He does draw a consonant there, but no 7-letter bingo still. So still desperately needing to at least threaten a bingo that Rahn will have to deal with. He's not able to draw one. So his time is running out a little bit, unless maybe he can draw. The score is close. So maybe he can use that S to score his way back in this, even if he doesn't draw a bingo. Like maybe he'll have a way of playing something with emote himself. Richard has a T. Maybe he'll be able to play something down all the way. I don't see what that is yet, but it's possible that a play scoring a ton of points right there could be really bad news for Rahn. Rahn is going to go ahead and play Daw. 19 points, scoring decently. This is just so close. Continuing both players with that T. And now Rahn draws a Y for Pulpy. He could play something like that. Back over to Richard. This is crazy. I really don't know. Richard's gotten pretty unlucky to not have been able to draw a 7-letter bingo that would have played underneath Pulpy. He's had several cracks at it. Hasn't been able to pull it. But now with only 2 tiles in the bag, he's in a bit of a bind. So what could he do? I'm sure he's looking around here. I'm sure he's thinking to himself, is there anything that I can play either in this spot right here? If I play an O, does this help me to open up space? Not really, because he doesn't have any of the letters that he would need. Rahn has the R. But I guess maybe you play the O as a diversion tactic. I'm not really sure. I don't think Ron's going to realize that he has both the L and the R if Richard plays Obe here, trying to draw. Because if Richard plays an O and tries to draw LR, if you think about it, if he draws either of those, he would have locates and lobe, and then locates and lobe right here, locates in 2 spots. Or if he draws the R, he would have recoats. And what here? Anything? Maybe not. Oh, he's deciding maybe to go a totally different direction and just go for the maximum number of points that he can get by using this hook. Very interesting idea. That's going to put some pressure on Rahn to play a very precise endgame, depending on what Richard draws. And actually, just looking at the tiles available, it looks like Richard is going to draw an H, which will pair very nicely with that C. So I'm not 100% sure what that actually... There are 2 tiles in the bag. Not sure what the other one is. Looks like N. He's going to draw HN after this play. So, wow, this is creating a really tricky endgame. Richard goes up by 12, emptying the bag. And now Rahn is in a tricky situation, but it's one where I feel that he has a good chance of winning this simply because, well, maybe not. What can he do? I'm just wondering what Richard can do. I'm looking around, trying to figure out where are his good scoring plays. Oh my gosh, this is insane. So I think maybe it's the case that, oh man, if Ron plays that, he's gonna get hit with something like Nacho or something through this A, or Ancho. It's gonna score too much. This could be crazy. It looks like Richard has Chan set up. That would play up here with Obe and score decently well. Maybe just well enough. Oh, all right. I This could be anybody's game. I really don't know for sure how the heck this one is going to come out. If Ron plays Lacey, that gets hit with OCHE, Osh. Richard will have a nice big play there. Oh, this looks crazy. This definitely looks like Ron should be fine with these nice scoring letters, but I just don't know if he can squeeze enough points out of his 2 turns. Let's figure this out. So I think Richard's best play is, I guess some of it depends on what Ron's play is, but on the board as it currently stands, the best play looks to be Chan up here. And I do think, based on the way that Richard has his tiles arranged, he sees that. It scores 21 points. So if you were to give him 21 here, that brings him to 393. That means that Ron needs to, he would get 2 points for this E, so you can give him 2 points there. That means he needs to get 31 points over 2 turns with these tiles. And that's only if he manages not to give something better back to Richard. He might give something better than Chan back to Richard. Oh my gosh, what is the way of doing that? 30 points feels like it should be doable. The problem is, plays like Yuka, they just give back so much more. You're giving back Nacho. So I think I would be feeling, if I'm Ron here, I'm feeling like, how could I not be winning this game? I have to be. But this could be an amazing job by Richard to figure out a way to squeak ahead. Oh, you know what's interesting? Is there anything that Ron can do right here to set up his Y? That would be so nice. Is there some play that makes oh, I just don't see it. If he plays Lack, yeah, like Lack here, the problem with Lack is that you leave Yurt, which doesn't actually end in Y. What you really need is a way to play a 4-letter word ending in Y. That gets you so many points if you play something with oil here. Unfortunately, what would even do that? If he just plays like L-A, I don't think that gets the job done, especially because you just get hit with something here, I'm sure. Hone might, maybe you get C-stuck. No, you don't. So Ron is going to consider playing Tug. Nice idea. So he put Lycra on the board and then likely realized that he's going to get hit with a really big counterplay for that. Then he considered playing Tug. That way, after Richard plays something up here, Ron could go out with Lycra, and maybe that bridges the gap. I actually think that barely doesn't score enough, right? Like Ron needs 30 plus here. Lycra scores 20, and Tug scores only 6. So oh my gosh. All right. I think, amazingly, this looks like Richard is going to sneak away with a win here, which is amazing on his part. I really thought for sure that this was going to be Ron's win, but you could see Ron is using all the rest of his time to think this through. If he just plays put, I think he's going to get hit with Notch through that T. That's not good enough. It's just going to get hit too hard. But he's right that playing Lycra now isn't going to be a winning move either. Wow. All right, time is dwindling. He's going to have to think of something to play and maybe try to trick Richard somehow. That's something that you always can try to do. When you don't see a way to win the game normally, maybe there's a way to trick him. All right, he's going to play run. I think Richard is very likely to quickly respond to this with just Sean in the normal spot. Maybe that's not good enough. I don't know. Anyway, it's back to Richard. I think he can probably now know. At least he can look and think, what is Ron going to do with AYLCT? I know the clock is ticking, but he can sort of just assume there must not be anything with those. I have to go ahead and play what I was going to play and hope that my instinct is correct, that he just doesn't have any outplay with these tiles. All right, Richard's going to send this. This should be a winner for him here. I think. There we go. He plays it. Back to Ron. I don't know if Ron is thinking about what outplays he has, but no, he's going to go ahead and play Lacey. Not an outplay. Gets him close, but as we go back to Richard, he's just going to be able to plop his E down and win this game. Crazy. Wow. I don't think Ron actually had an endgame win sequence there, so might as well let him know. So crazy again. I'll unmute again and just say all these games have been completely bonkers. Amazing. I think that was a beautiful winning pre-endgame play by Richard, and that there actually were no winning endgame sequences there, Ron. That was insane. I can't believe that.
Wait, Taos was correct there?
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a great play. If you go for bingos, it's going to be tough for you to draw them in multiple spots. Playing something like Obe at the top of the board, you don't have the hooks. Ron actually has both of the hooks to that on his rack, so that's not going to win for you. So you might have figured out pretty much the only way to snatch this game back from the brink there and send it to game 5. So craziness. All right, looking at the margins of victory, I think that Ron's victories were slightly bigger. So we're gonna. Do we have any mods on Twitch? You got somebody doing the spamming. I'll fix that in a second.
It's okay to take a short, like.
Sure, absolutely. If you guys want to get up, take a quick break. That's all good. Yeah, we'll do that. There we go. I'm banning someone on Twitch. So, all right, you guys feel free to take a short break, and maybe we'll be back in just a couple minutes with the decisive game 5 here. A couple other things to attend to. So, yeah, let's break for like 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Players are back from break, and we're ready to start our decisive game 5. It will be Ron going first, and he's got a good set of letters here, as Richard will soon see. I'm going to mute on the Zoom, but yeah, good start for Ron there. And I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, so Ron with Triolet, not sure how to say, but a very nice draw for him to start this off. Let me run his clock a second. All right, we'll go ahead and go back to Richard here. Just have to get set up with all my stuff. Make sure you guys can see everything. But yeah, that's just what Ron would want to see to start things off. He plays it in the most defensive positioning here, and that being placing none of the vowels in this word next to these double letter scores. That makes it much more difficult to score very nicely in response. That's why he placed it there. That's a really good rule of thumb. If you have a bunch of different positions to play your word, and score is no concern here, the way it is with this word, all 1-point letters, trying to figure out that positioning to avoid placing your vowels next to the double letter score, that's going to help a lot. And all right, let's see. So Richard is potentially going to play pirogue. Oh, okay. So that he's going to maybe plop down his extra U as well. That looks like a decent play. Not sure who of you out there are seeing what I think is very likely the star play here. There's one play which is extremely obscure. So many crazy bingos out there in the Scrabble dictionary. There actually is one available here for Richard. Extremely obscure, I think. This word, I think it would be very normal for him to go ahead and play something like grouper, or yeah, grouper seems reasonable. And that is going to be what he plays. Oops, I was supposed to run his clock a little. The word that he could have potentially played there, promulge, through the L of triolet right there. Promulge. That would have been one heck of a play. I think very, very, very few players are going to see that one and plop it down in short order. So that would have been a big opportunity for Richard to equalize the score in the early going. But I think it's very difficult to find too much fault in that one. So grouper gets a lot of the clunky letters off his rack at once. Of course, he draws the Q along with it, and there is an open U for Richard. There isn't really anything that inspiring through this U. Something like quilt or quit, whatever you want to play through that U, isn't very likely to score very well, and that's not what Richard needs at a deficit. And Ron quickly plays Jape here. That's a reasonable play with that J. There's not a lot else that he could do with that J that both scores decently and balances the rack. The nice thing about Jape is that it left 2 consonants and 2 vowels. So if you're not going to be able to achieve every goal that you want on a particular turn, achieving some of them is sometimes what you have to settle for. I think Jape does that. He also kept an R for Japer, which potentially is going to play here. Jape also featured in the first episode of the Scrabble TV show. Has anybody seen that? I just was able to watch it recently. It's the new Scrabble game show on the CW channel. Anybody out there gotten a chance to watch that? I just watched it. I thought it was interesting. Some good, some other, I don't know about bad, just some amusing stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. I'll probably make a YouTube video about it at some time soon. So there we see mixed is going to be the play. That was for Richard. It goes back over to Ron now, and he's going to be thinking about what can he do with his Y. I wonder, he's certainly looking at Japer. Question from Mark on Facebook about Puzzle Path. I do think that we've done some tests with Puzzle Path before. As always, with all of our game modes, we're always evaluating what happens when we reintroduce them to the
Kamikaze.
game. As Ron says, Kamikaze playing Arroyo, opening up this triple, and in fact, he's going to catch Richard in a golden situation without a really good way to use that triple. Anyway, just to finish answering that question, never say never.
I can't take too much advantage of that.
We did do a test a few months ago reintroducing Puzzle Path. It didn't do as well as we hoped in terms of player base. Could be something we revisit again in the future. Richard plays Dolt. That's really the best he could do. No great way of shedding his Q through there, and he has to at least honor that recently opened spot of that O of Arroyo. So many powerful letters could go there, which is why, Ron, you heard him say Kamikaze. That was definitely an aggressive move, but he caught Richard in a tough situation without a real ability to punish it there. So Dolt, very reasonable play. Richard can't just allow Ron to play in that spot. So the only question now is, with that blank, Ron is surely thrilled. He's gotten the first bingo in the game, Triolet, and now he has the first blank. If he can come up with a bingo here, things are going to be looking very, very good for him in this game. And it feels like there should be something, but keep in mind that there's only a T as a really flexible floating letter, and he has a T already. So anytime you have good tiles and a blank, the first thing I'm looking for is, I would love to have an E, I would love to have an N or something like that on the board, neither of which I have. But there are no openings like that right now. So in fact, I hate to, if I'm Ron, I hate to throw in the towel on this nice looking set of tiles, but there actually are no playable bingos on this move. So really, it's crazy. One of the skills, of course, we know in Scrabble that a paramount skill is the ability to find those long words, those bingos with a high frequency. But when you introduce that clock into the play, and I know those of you that primarily play Scrabble Go do not play with the clock, and you perhaps prefer not to play with the clock, and that's totally understandable. It's a different style of play. But once you introduce that clock, the ability to actually realize that you don't have any long words with racks like this is a very difficult skill to master. You have to be able to sort of instinctively say, well, if I haven't seen a bingo after X number of minutes, I need to move on. And that's tough to do. So you can see Ron's clock ticking, continuing to tick, just as it did in Game 3. Spent a lot of time on that move where he played Rig instead of Regulate or any of the other bingos. Didn't really cost him at all. But in this case, he's spending a lot of time to avoid a repeat of that. There actually isn't anything to find. Something for him like just Duo right here seems pretty good. Scoring decently well. Maybe he's going to play, I was going to literally suggest a moment later, something like Audit. The nice thing about that is you now have more. Of course, you're exchanging this T for this T, but you're also getting a D and an I, which could be super useful. The more open letters you get, the better. But his draw is atrocious. So a good draw for Ron there, and we could really be looking at a dominant advantage in this game. But instead, Richard has an opportunity to play off his Q somewhere. It looks like he was considering playing Cat for 12. Instead, he's going to, looks like, exchange QEN. The reason he's doing this is that he probably feels that he increases his odds of getting a bingo down a little bit more by doing that. So makes sense. I actually think his leave, if he just plays off his cue, is actually deceptively good, even with the duplicated letters. I think that he could have been fine, but oh, look at what he's got set up on his rack and headed to the board. A huge bingo into this tee of Set Tenant. Ron is getting set to play Vig. This will block the high-scoring version of Set Tenant, but there's another tee on the other spot of the board. So Richard is just going to go ahead and shift his positioning. I think Richard actually may prefer this positioning because if you look at the score, Set Tenant is going to get the game closer, but he's going to need more. He's going to need more help to come all the way back in this game. And the nice thing about playing Set Tenant in that upper corner instead of down here is that now you give an S and an E and a T to the board. All of these letters are extremely useful to end future bingos. And you can see Richard is down even after his bingo. So the fact that he's played this positioning of his bingo makes a lot of sense. Ron quickly playing Kiva for a very, very good score down in that corner, but drawing more clunky letters on the rack here. He played Vig, leaving something like BIK blank. And he had, I think he had something like Haiku. Yeah, so Haiku he had put on the board, but he opts for Kiva, which scores even better. Makes sense, but he has drawn the V. I think he didn't have, he didn't have the V to pair with that U. So he's going to be slowed down for even one more turn here. And Richard is desperately needing to beat Ron to the punch and get the next bingo down, which is going to be tough. Ron with that blank, but there is another one lurking. And Richard may be getting set to play Wall right here for 33. Again, those nice bingo-prone letters, very likely to combine well with these open tiles of Set Tenant. It would be a shock to see a bingo not go down there, except I really think Ron has a huge incentive to play something like Hub here. Something like Hub to block off those big spots. All right, Richard plays Wall. Makes sense. And we are going to see Ron play exactly that. This is the type of defensive-minded play that he absolutely needs to make here. This would be, unless he has some really high-scoring play somewhere else. This play actually scores quite well, as in addition to being defensive. Oh, man, he's... So this is really interesting. So even though Ron has a lead, he is intentionally keeping the board open. The reason that he's doing that is because he has the blank. So he feels that he is a really big favorite to hit this spot before Richard does. But man, that's dangerous. I would definitely feel a little scared to leave that open and give Richard an avenue back into this game. So it's interesting. I get it. It's a type of play that I myself probably years ago I would have done Hub down low trying to land that next bingo, but I really feel like I would want to give Richard more credit for being able to, he's just playing Wall, 3 tiles for not that many points. The odds are decent that he kept something nice, which he did. And had he not drawn MOU, we could see Richard bingoing to the S or E right now. So meanwhile, Ron, I don't think has drawn a bingo, so Richard is still going to have a chance. Looks like Ron has seen that he can put a Y here. Sorry, it is actually Richard's turn. I really need to be on top of that. Ron's clock ran a couple minutes down that it shouldn't have, so I'll correct for that. But yeah, he sees that he can get this Y here and score a bunch more, but that does give Richard one more chance to potentially play off some letters, balance his rack, and get to that bingo first. So we'll see what he can do. So hub, the play for Ron. Of course, we would have potentially, I mean, hub was getting played there no matter what. Only question is where, this positioning or down lower. So, all right. Richard has to think about this one. He's got to dig deep. Richard made an amazing play in the previous game, game 4. Oh, and look at that. Nice idea by Ron. Maybe there's some way of bingoing through the O, making japed. That's a very nice thought. I'm not sure there is anything. But yeah. So how could this play out from here? Richard could balance his rack. Ron is going to score well, play something into here. Maybe Richard hits the S as a bingo and evens the game, and then so much will hinge on Ron's next draw from the bag. If Ron draws something good, he'll simply bingo again and retake the lead after Richard plays something there. It's anybody's game right now, but certainly Ron is in a commanding position, holding a 65-point lead and one of the blanks on his rack. He's in good shape, but we said that last game too, and Richard found a way. Richard thinking about Duomo here. It's actually kind of surprising how there's just no really good scoring opportunities on this board at all. I would have thought that there would surely be something through this O playing into a hook of japed or japer here, but I don't really see anything. Poker Joker on Twitch says Richard definitely seemed discouraged last turn, seeing his bingo come up invalid. Yes. So that's always, you have those high hopes of putting something on the board and you get that red little border that shows you it's not actually valid. All right, we won't run Ron's clock for a couple minutes. It looks like he's quickly going to play Envy, which makes sense. That is just what the doctor ordered. Scoring very, very well, leaving ED blank. And did I just see a Q on his rack? Yes. So that's... unfortunately for Richard, he drew a clunky combination there. So what we're rooting for a close game. If you're a Ron fan out there, you're not rooting for this. But if you want the game to be as close as possible, you were rooting for Richard to get a bingo down here, and he just has not done that. His draw, the duplicated tiles, I think he left AIR. He did draw an S, which he has to be happy to see, but not the other two duplicates. So he's going to have to come up with something that, unfortunately, is likely to be a pretty weak hitting move. It's not going to be all that strong. And it will give Ron even further opportunity to push his lead up in this game. So really, that's a tough break for Richard. Maybe he's just going to have to play something like, raid Vare in this spot right here. Probably he doesn't want to play Vare just because it uses up a little extra space. At least now you could maybe sometimes bingo down from this I. Not very likely, though. All right, let's see. Not quite. So, not quite once again. So, yeah. Almost something like equated or something like that for Ron here. Not exactly there. But still, even with that Q, he's thinking, do I have some way of doing something good with this Q? Maybe I can burn my blank. But there really isn't anything big through this AT ending in ED. It's definitely worth considering from his perspective, but Really the best thing that he can do now, again, after his play of Hub, really dramatically changing the feel of the rest of the game with this S and E pretty wide open. Um, Good option for him would just be to play his Q, and he does just dump his Q. Another option could be Kanat there for more points, but he's just going to go ahead and dump the Q and hope for the best that maybe he can hit something big into that S. Actually not sure what, if anything, he has with his weaned blank rack, but either way, he'll have a little chance to look for that while Richard does his best. What can Richard do here? I mean, the nice thing for him, again, he has this lifeline in the upper right as a way back into this game, but he also needs to keep scoring points, or else that eventual bingo won't matter that much. It looks like he's considering playing Cowl. The tough thing is that one of the best scoring plays he can make here is something like cringe into this E, and that is somewhat of a cringe play for him. I am such a boomer, but it is such a cringe play because it closes down the board so much after putting a C out in space there. So in any case, tough situation for Richard. I like the idea of trying to get to a bingo as quickly as possible. He really hasn't missed much with the exception of Promulge at the very outset of this game, which is a really tough one. I could not emphasize that enough. So it's back to Ron. 20 tiles left to play, and he still has a pretty significant advantage here. He has one playable bingo. I'm not sure if anybody has spotted it. It's not in the spot that you think. I would certainly feel like with these letters, how could there not be a bingo to this S? How could there not be a bingo? Well, maybe a little bit less so to this E. The one bingo available here for Ron is actually down from this I of all places. I don't even know if I'd look there. No floating R for Wanderer. That's right. I actually played Wanderer at the national championship this year. I really thought it was the right play, but I actually missed a slightly better play. So look, I was too hell bent on making content. I guess you can never be too hell bent on content, but for those that don't know, that is my online handle, Wanderer15. Has been since I was 15 years old. That's probably about right. Oh, I think, yes. Oh, look at this. So probably Ron, after looking for a while at this S, he was probably death staring that S and saying, man, how do I not have something? But he has now eventually turned his attention to the eye of audit, and that is a huge blow in this game. That is a rough break for Richard as Ron goes up by a very significant score here. Yeah, that is definitely a big blow in this game for sure. So yeah, Richard playing Girds quickly. No need to draw this out. Actually, he now draws the Z, so maybe he can draw something big, but Ron immediately taking the initiative to go ahead and block that S now that his lead is that big. There's no need to mess around, and he really puts the clamps on this board. So certainly looks like, oh, I think I have this thing wrong too. I'm sorry. This is game 5. Sorry, everybody. Its match is tied 2-2. I apologize. I didn't write that. The whole time it's been wrong. Sorry about that. Always lose track of some stuff on here. But either way, this is definitely looking excellent for Ron McKeown, former winner of community tournament, I think 3 or something like that. But Richard has won 3 of these. Very consistent performance and he's played great. In game 4, he won a game to prolong this match that was absolutely magnificent on his part. I can't believe that he actually pulled it off. Really great pre-endgame play. Few, I think, would have found that. And he came up with a win to prolong the match. So he has definitely acquitted himself incredibly well. No surprise. So he's going to go ahead and play zone. Maybe he's hoping to draw another O, or he can draw the blank and make it an O for ozone. Ron actually has another 7-letter word on his rack. If he sees it and knows it, he's got a word that fits with ozone here, which would definitely put the finishing touches on this game. He doesn't need to see it. He's definitely going to win. When is the next community tournament? That's a great question. I do know that something that we are thinking about, and everybody out there, if you have any thoughts on this, let me know in the chat on Twitch or on Facebook. We want to do more of these matches, but we want to give more people a chance to experience the live match format. So we want to offer people a chance to, you and your friend, you can nominate somebody you'd like to play in a match on stream, and you get their permission first, of course, and you agree on it. But we would love to do more of these. It would be a lot easier to do these nice live streams if we could go straight to the source of people that might want to play. So is that something you'd be interested in if you and a friend ever want to play a match for a chance at nice big prizes? That would allow us to do many more of these live streams than we typically do. So just a thought. Could be fun. At the same time, we know many of you are really enjoy the current format, or at least the format we've been rolling with for a while for these community tournaments. They do they take a lot to organize. So we're always trying to think about how can we, there we go. So Ron sees that he can block up there, and he's going to go ahead. He's thinking about Baysonic, Absonic, Baysonic. He's going for it. So we'll see. The game show I watched when I was a kid brought me here. I'd pay to see you become the next Chuck Woolery. I loved that show when I was a kid. Chuck Woolery Scrabble. The new show that just premiered is nowhere close to the Chuck Woolery version. I used to love that show back in the day. But thank you for stopping by, Adkilla. All right, Ron's thinking about a whole bunch of options here. I think he's ultimately going to be just fine. But the nice thing about the move that he has ended up making here is if Richard bingos, which he's pretty likely to do with these nice tiles, actually had maybe some things blocked with that play. But if Richard is able to bingo here, it won't end the game. There were 3 tiles in the bag. So, nice idea. This is great. 4-side, I think, is going to be Richard's play. Very, very nice. He's down by enough that ultimately there is no realistic pathway to victory for him here. Maybe he's going to, I think he's going to go ahead and play 4-side. He's just down by too much. Fortnightly League tournament using Scrabble Go. I was aware of that. And there are so many Scrabble Go leagues and things like that out there. It would be so cool someday to support all the things that different Scrabble Go leagues are doing with like in-game features. It's definitely my dream to do something like that. But nice bingo by Richard here. 4-side for 82 is going to give Ron back a simple way to dump his S and score well, and it's going to be back to Richard, who will just have a few minutes to come up with, he'll probably just plop down an H play in short order, and it's going to be Rahn McKeown as our winner in an incredible match. Actually, these games were all really back and forth, a couple epic comebacks and wins for both players. We'll hear a little bit about, just quickly talk to them. I know it's been a long stream here. How has this stream been? This stream really been 3 hours and 30 minutes? I'm impressed by my stamina and by the players' stamina. I guess that makes sense. It feels like maybe a little long, but either way. All right, that does it. Game over. Gonna unmute myself on the Zoom, and we got to give our congratulations to Ron for the 3-2 series win. Man, though, Richard gave him everything he could handle here. That was actually an amazing match. Pretty much every game had really cool positions to sink our teeth into, etc. Chat says thank you. Chat tells me to thank the two of you for the high quality entertainment, which is absolutely the case. But yeah, any thought? I mean, I guess it's already. I didn't budget.
All right, Will, go ahead and tell me, what did I miss in that rack where I tried a whole bunch of fake words?
At the very end,
yeah,
it didn't matter, but there was
there's
a
one
7.
in there, though.
Yeah,
I know there's one in there.
Bonacci or whatever.
Oh, Bonacis.
Yeah, I didn't even
Seen
mention
that
that because it's not.
Wow.
It didn't matter, but yeah, I mean that was tough.
Yeah.
Just a lot, to sink our teeth into, like I said, for all 5 of the games, and of course Richard forcing that 5th game in epic fashion. But yeah, Ron was just too much. Great bingo finding. So
yeah, I think after Inweaved, it was pretty much over at that point.
Yeah, no, that was I was spending a lot of time on the S up top, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I got an I down there.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Is that I think probably as soon as you look down at that I and thought about it for a second, you might consider it, but that it's so off the beaten path that I would just be laser focused on the S. But you got there, which we were very impressed by. So, all right. Anyway, so yeah, just a real quick reminder. The prizes, you guys are getting lots of nice ad-free months and gems and all kinds of other tickets and stuff like that. But if you are interested out there, one of the viewers out there, in playing in one of these events yourself, best way to stay on top of it is to join the official Scrabble Go community group. You also see the pop-ups in-game. We're going to get back to hosting more of these community tournaments very soon. So with that, congratulations, Ron. Epic performance by you both. Well done, Richard, to make it an incredible series. Any final thoughts? First to you, Richard.
Yeah, I think you did well. I mean, definitely speaks to your performance as a tournament player. Yeah, I think we gave it as good as the matches we could hope for.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I think I'm pretty certain, based on the close games where you completely outplayed me pre-endgame and endgame, that if I didn't draw what I needed to here, you would have definitely taken it. So, yeah, definitely pulled some really nice stuff. Will, I am exhausted. 5 games on this thing is a lot.
Yeah,
but thank you for hosting. Appreciate it. And hopefully we gave people a decent show.
You absolutely did. So with that, I think it's time for the East Coast folks to go get some food and all of that good stuff. But from wherever you're watching worldwide, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Adios.